Welcome to a special 15-year anniversary episode of Stories from the NNI. I'm Lisa Friedersdorf, Director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office, or NNCO. Today, it's my pleasure to welcome Mark Shaw, CEO of UltraTech International. Mark co-founded UltraTech in 1993, so they've just celebrated their 26th anniversary. Many of UltraTech's products are in the environmental remediation and spill containment areas. Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Your company certainly has a diverse group of products. Could you talk about a couple of the things that excite you most?
Sure. And Lisa, thank you for inviting us to participate. Some of the products that we've come out with more recently have fallen under our advanced technology group, and they include a superhydrophobic coating that's used on hard surfaces that uses nanotechnology as its base. We also have EverShield, which is a superhydrophobic, omniphobic treatment that was developed under a military SBIR to make basically your clothing not need to be washed anymore and completely stain resistant. And then the final one that's pretty exciting for us is Avejo, which means to remove in Latin, and that is a odor removal product that was developed by Kimberly-Clark and also uses nanotechnology.
Oh, very exciting. So the superhydrophobic coating that you mentioned, is that the one that you demonstrate in your TED Talk that's gone viral?
Yes. Yeah, it was a pretty interesting situation because one day we're just, unknown, and the next day it went viral. We had 1 million hits in one day. And today over 40 million people have viewed that original video. It's pretty amazing.
I've shared that video many times. I think that you do a great job talking about how nanotechnology is helping areas like that. Can you talk a little bit more about the details of the nanotechnology in that product?
Sure. So the original product, which was the super hydrophobic coating for us, it kind of got us on the map. We gave a TED Talk on. That's based on the concept of really two parts to make something super hydrophobic. And super hydrophobics, for those listening that aren't familiar with it, weren't really commercialized until about 5 years ago. We kind of brought it to the market and made it more known to the public. And what happens is you have to have a combination of surface tension and surface morphology. The lower you can make your surface tension, when liquid hits that surface, it's going to tend to stay in a droplet form rather than spread out. So the lower the surface tension of the coating, the better as the stage one of trying to make something super hydrophobic. The second part is when you see these videos where you put any kind of liquid on a super hydrophobic and it kind of falls off like mercury, it's visually compelling and you would think the surface is really smooth. But actually it's got a craggly surface. It's got a texture feel to it, like a matte finish. And if you look under electron microscope, you would see a series of peaks and valleys throughout the surface. And what happens is that surface tension with these peaks and valleys allows the liquid to remain in basically a ball shape or droplet shape, and it rolls across the surface. And it's rolling from peak to peak. So at any given time, only about 3% of the liquid is actually touching the surface. And if you have a lot of liquid on there, you're going to see kind of a silver glow underneath it, and that's air that's trapped underneath the surface of the liquid as it's riding down these peaks. And so when you touch it after the water's gone off, the surface feels dry even though you just put liquid on it.
That's a great description, and I encourage our listeners to look at the TED Talk because I think you do a great job with the graphics as well to talk about that particular concept of superhydrophobicity. We noticed that you have a very extensive patent portfolio, and you personally are the inventor of several patents. Can you discuss a little bit your patent strategy and what your experience has been with the process?
Thanks for asking. To give a perspective, we're a small company, so sometimes it's difficult for small companies to have a good patent strategy, or they sometimes don't even think about it. We, from the very beginning, had a few basic principles. One, as we discovered we were pretty good at inventing, we then got into the patent side of things. And if you're going to be in the patent side of things, even if you're a small company, right from the get-go, we knew that we had to defend our patents aggressively because we would start building a case so that down the road, when people wanted to infringe on us, they'd look back and see, oh, these guys have had 2 or 3 times they've defended their patents. They're not going to roll over. And so that kind of is a chilling effect on companies to then want to knock you off and think that you'll just go away. So that's important. It's hard sometimes when you're a small company to have those costs early in your business development. But we stuck to that. And you can also, for people listening that would be interested, you get patent insurance, which in the early days you pay about $200 or $300 a month, and it gives you $200,000 worth of legal fees covered as part of that. So that can be helpful. The other part of it is that for us, innovation is how we drive our company and how we stay ahead of the competition. And so investing in patents and investing in technologies that can be patented helps give us an edge against bigger companies that might have greater resources. It gives us the time to compete without having them in the same market as us at that time. So deciding to do, spend the money on the patents, don't do it if you're not going to defend it because it's just a waste of your money. And aggressively defending it when you do need to and develop that reputation for being someone who does defend the patents can go a long way.
That's great advice. And I think the Tech Pathways series that this podcast is part of is intended to not only tell the great stories of companies like yours that are using nanotechnology, but also to share best practices and advice for other companies. And I think that was a great example of advice that can be very helpful to folks as they're just getting started. Can you share your experience about the process of going from an invention, an idea, something that you've patented and protected, into commercial products?
Sure. I'd like to answer that with two separate ways, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Internally, over the years, we've developed about 400 products from scratch. We've done this over and over and over again. So we kind of have a recipe at this point on taking an idea and going through the necessary steps to incubate it and then commercialize it, market it, and then launch it and then make it successful in the marketplace. That's been honed by 20, 30 years of doing this. And there's just a lot of basic things that no matter what the product is, you have certain things you need to go through to make it a success. And those things, a lot of those are somewhat, logical and people do those all the time. But there is a pattern that you can develop to be successful in bringing them to market. What we found, though, is that and this is the second part of the answer, I guess, to your question, is that there are a lot of people, especially probably in the nanotechnology world, who are very bright, very clever, and have no business experience or have no interest in business. They're more interested in the technology. They'd rather work in a lab and create new technology than go do battle in a sales forum or, have to worry about the accounting side of things and so forth. And for that reason, we created a group within our company called the Advanced Technology Group about 5 years ago. What the Advanced Technology Group does is it is the bridge between the smart people of the world and the markets that need their products. What we then do is we'll work with those smart people, take their technologies, incubate them into a product, commercialize them, and take them through our channels of distribution. For example, we have about 1,900 distributors in 97 countries. So we have ability, once the product is ready, to then kind of take it to the market in mass. And that bridge that the ATG group provides, we think is a valuable tool for companies that are in the nanotechnology field and other advanced technologies where they've got the technology part down, they just don't know how to take it to the next step.
I want to talk a little bit about the environmental space some of your products address. So you have a large presence in the spill remediation area. Can you talk about how nanotechnology aids in environmental cleanup?
Sure. Some of the areas we get involved in are the nuclear waste side of things and oil spill side of things. I'm actually going back to Nigeria here in a week and a half to implement our first work over there with some people on what's really the world's biggest oil spill. People don't realize it, but there's this contaminated land the size of Ohio over there from decades of oil spills. So we're over there with some technologies. The ones we're using right now are nano-sized, but not necessarily nanoscience. It's oil-eating microbes that are naturally produced by nature, and then they're collected from around the world and cultivated and then placed onto an oil-contaminated area so they can kind of supercharge Mother Nature and eliminate the oil. But there are, and we've been investigating, several technologies that are designed for oil spill cleanup that are nano-based. The oil spill market has been pretty much using the same thing since the 60s. And so innovation in that area is slow to come. And these technologies that we're investigating have some promise, but it wouldn't be possible without the nanoscience behind it.
So, one of the areas that I'm particularly passionate about is the area of education. And I know that your organization has been an enthusiastic supporter of nanotechnology education through Omni Nano. Could you speak briefly about your interest in that area?
Sure. Well, it was easy for us because they're working with a very noble task of trying to introduce students, mostly high school students, to the nanotechnology world and help get kids interested in STEM education and look beyond maybe what they would normally find in a high school setting. So these students are really getting excited when they learn about nano, and it'll be interesting to see as time goes on how many of them go on to become nanoscientists, nanoengineers, and so forth. But Marco at the Omni group there, he's a scientist and engineer by training and could be, I'm sure, making more money doing things for him personally, but he's really, really dedicated to helping get the students get on a path that can not only help them, but also help the whole development of the nano world. And so he's to be commended for that. And we support them as we can financially, and then we support them by a lot of our samples, the things that we're seeing in those videos that were so popular. We actually give those samples to Omni Group, and they can let the students actually see for themselves right in front of their eyes how nanotechnology can affect a piece of fabric or affect a tile in an amazing way. And they can take it home and share it with their parents and their friends and so forth. And so it's a great outreach that they do.
Totally switching gears here, I'd like to get your thoughts about the National Nanotechnology Initiative. What types of collaborations or other activities have you been engaged with the NNI?
Certainly, the NNI has brought nanoscience and nanotechnology to a lot more industry and the military, for instance. And out of that, the military has engaged in a number of SBIRs that we've been the beneficiary of because they funded nano research into creating several new products and technologies to help the military meet certain objectives. And at the end of that development, then those products are available for licensing, and we've been able to obtain worldwide licenses to several of those technologies. So we're now incubating them, and we've commercialized them and have taken them to the marketplace. So those SBIRs and the work that your group did to kind of make them aware that these were possibilities helped us in many of our endeavors. And then there's really a bigger picture for your group. There's kind of a nanotechnology race going on worldwide where the Germans and Koreans and Chinese and Russians are all vying to gain and gather as much nanotechnology currency, if you will, in the form of technology as they can and become the leaders globally. With the NNI, it's like having a coach there that can offer advice. Sometimes, there's some grants and funds that can be given. There's just an initiative from the highest level of the government saying, we don't want to be walking when everyone else is running. And our goal, I think, as a country then is to be the leaders in this area. And without the NNI to kind of be the hub of the spokes, then I don't think that we would be as successful in keeping up or ahead as we have been. And so that's a valuable use of tax dollars.
Thank you very much, Mark, for taking the time to talk with us today. Do you have any parting thoughts that you would like to share with our listeners?
I guess I would just encourage them to take a chance. They've got an interest in nanotechnology, but they really don't know what it's all about. We didn't either. And we're living proof that you don't have to be the smartest person in the room to help bring technologies to market, that you can collaborate to figure it out as you go along.
Thank you for joining us today for this special 15-year anniversary edition of Stories from the NNI. If you would like to learn more about nanotechnology, please visit nano.gov or email us at info@nnco.nano.gov and check back here for more stories.